Welcome to STEM Guitar Building webinar today. This session is recorded and all participants will be sent a recording link so that they can review this in the future if they need to. It's my privilege to turn over the presentation today to Tom Singer. Tom, welcome. Would you introduce yourself and your colleagues?
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. And welcome everybody joining us on our second annual STEM Guitar Building webinar. And I hail from Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio, where I teach mechanical engineering technology. And joining us today on our presenter team, and one of the interesting things before I jump into that is that I'll be in the main workshop joining the participants up in the Northeast. Mike Akins is from Butler County Community College, where he is also an engineering technology instructor. He's going to be hosting the Butler County Community College workshop, and he's also going to be out in Wyoming. And also in Wyoming at our event will be Doug Hunt. And Doug is an engineering and technology instructor at Southern Wells High School in northern Indiana. Nancy Wilson Chang will be joining me out in Maine. And Nancy teaches mathematics and technology at Edmond Heights K-12 High School in Edmond, Washington. Debbie French is out at the University of Wyoming. She is hosting the Laramie, Wyoming event, and she, in her previous lifetime, was a physics instructor in the state of Ohio, in northern Ohio, and she has since gone on to work on her doctoral work, and so she's out at the University of Wyoming. And then last but not least is Dr. Mark French, who hails from Purdue University, teaches in mechanical engineering technology. You'll hear a little bit more about Mark and our history during our presentation. And Mark is going to be out at the Saddleback Community College event this summer. And so today we've got quite a few items on our webinar outline. Not only going over some history and basically what the big picture is, we're going to talk specifically what the expectations we're going to be asking of you both this summer and during the next school year will be. We'll then have some Q&A time. We'll talk a little bit about the rest of the team that isn't just presenting, but we actually have members from around the United States that will be joining us at our builds. And Nancy and Doug will be talking about, well, what do you expect in a day when you attend a STEM Guitar Institute? And then finally, Mike Akins and I will be wrapping up the session today with some homework for you to work on so that you'll get some prep work done before you actually attend the first event starting in mid-June. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Mike and Mark French and talk a little bit about the history of our project and where did the STEM Guitar project come from. Mike?
Okay, thanks, Tom, and welcome, folks. You're to be complimented. It's 5 after 4 on a Friday afternoon, and you're sitting somewhere for an hour plus long webinar, and I appreciate that. We really do. What I want to do is I'm going to take a few minutes and go through the timeline that you see on the screen, and then I'll turn it over to Mark French to talk about his books and a few other things. The project really got its start when Tom Singer and I attended the first Purdue Guitar Workshop in 2006. Mark French had been using the guitar, the classical guitar, in his engineering courses to help him teach his content. And he held the first Purdue Guitar Workshop in 2006, and Tom and I attended. I attended kind of like as an enthusiast, play guitar, and Tom was certainly enthused, not a guitar player. And as we were doing this, it was becoming very apparent that we could do this at our colleges. And we kept saying to ourselves, we think we can do that. Well, in 2007, Sinclair and Butler implemented the guitar into their into our curriculums. Now again, Purdue had been doing this for quite a few years, and Mark really gave us the idea for this. Sinclair, Tom Singer at Sinclair and myself at Butler, we started the project. Tom actually had a class going, and I just built the first guitar, more like a capstone. The following year, we conducted the first STEM guitar workshop as a finishing activity in another NSF grant, a product lifecycle management grant. And it was, we had 3 workshops. They were hugely successful. It was very apparent to us that we were on to something. And Sinclair, through Tom Singer's efforts, established themselves as a manufacturing site for the guitar kits that we use. And they're on track for, they go between 1,000 to 1,300 guitar kits a year, which is amazing. We wrote a grant in 2009, and the NSF, the National Science Foundation, saw the value in the grant. We made a few changes, and they gave us $900,000 for 3 years so that we could put all that money into your pockets. So we developed a 5-day intensive STEM guitar workshop that was geared towards high school and community college teachers. Well, in 2010, the first year of our grant, we conducted 3 workshops, and with the typical continuous quality improvement that we have, there's been a slow, steady redesign of the bodies and the necks. And it certainly is worth a shout out to Doug Hunt, a very good guitar player, an excellent teacher, and a great woodworker as well. He, along with other team members, have redesigned the neck, and they've done just a great job with that. Well, in 2011, we conducted 6 workshops across the country. And again, our implementation rate rose to about 45%. So 45% of the attendees, like yourself, that attend these workshops go home to their institution and they implement this in some way, shape, or form. In 2012, we conducted another 5 workshops and continued to redesign the neck on the body and the body of the guitar, as well as the delivery of the workshops and the activities. In 2013, we wrote a follow-on grant, and by golly, the NSF funded us. I think we had to do a second resubmission on that. They gave us another $900,000 of your tax dollars, and here we are. Here we are in the second summer of the second grant, and we've got an Institute series, summer workshop series that we are really excited about. The fact that you folks are taking the time on a Friday afternoon, the fact that you've filled out our questionnaires, and that you're going to be attending the workshop says a lot about you. It says that you're willing to give up some of your summertime and invest it in yourself and your kids. And we are all speaking from experience that when you implement, life will be different at your school or at your college. We have trained over 250 educators. I think that number is probably pushing 300. As I said earlier, we have a 45% implementation rate. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to go to the next slide and just show you. And I'm going to turn this over to Mark. Mark wrote a couple books during the grant, and I use the technology of the guitar here at the college, a little more algebra-based. But I'm going to let Mark take over now and let him talk about these books and some other things.
Hey, thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
I want to thank Tom for using a very old picture of me. My hair is not nearly that brown anymore.
You're very welcome, Mark.
Checks in the mail. One of the things I noticed when looking at the guitar industry is it really wasn't built on any firm technical foundation. Everything was just sort of empirical and done by, feel and by experience. And it seemed to me they needed some kind of reference book that we could at least lay out. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. Here's the physics and the engineering behind what we're all trying to do. And that's kind of where engineering the guitar came from. I also used it in my class early incarnation of my guitar manufacturing class here, and it went over pretty well. Although one of the complaints I got is there's too much advanced math in it. But that's okay. I can fix that. And so when I did technology of the guitar, I made sure not to use anything more advanced than junior high school algebra. And was also able to use some of the contacts that I developed from the first book to get more sort of inside information from the industry and more practical, immediately actionable information that I could put in the second book. And went over well enough that Bob Taylor from Taylor Guitars actually wrote the foreword for me. He wrote it on the company jet, so I thought that was pretty cool. But I use the technology of the guitar now as well in my classes, not necessarily because of the mathematics, but because there's a broader range of more immediately applicable information in it. And I think the explanation of what's going on is probably follows a little more clearly. If you want the more math-based, more foundational kinds of stuff, engineering the guitar is still current, though. So thanks very much.
So we'll move this over and talk a little bit about how the STEM components are built into the process. Debbie, do you want to join us and talk a little bit about how STEM is involved?
Sure, thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. STEM is a term that's been around for the past 25 years when the National Science Foundation first coined the term. However, it's one of my side research interests, and one of the articles that I found was by a gentleman named Keith in 2010, and he surveyed a bunch of STEM professionals, and the overwhelming majority of these professionals said STEM had to do something with either stem cell research or the supporting part of a plant. And that was just 5 years ago. So we still have our work cut out for us in terms of coming up with a unified definition for STEM and also promoting STEM education. And I might be a little bit biased, but after working with this grant and implementing this in my own classroom, I think this project really integrates STEM concepts well. We have worked very hard on developing science, physics and chemistry activities, technology, engineering, and math activities in a workbook. And then we also have the privilege of getting lesson plans from all of you folks. And we review those, and we'll be putting those up on our website. So this is really just a community of learners where we're helping everybody get quality lessons in everybody's classrooms and fully integrating STEM.
Increase your volume further. You may have to adjust the level on your
So why does it work? It's very easy to implement in your classroom. There's multiple levels of integration. So I've already had some conversations with folks, either remotely or in person, about how to implement this in your classroom. And it's one of the things we really focus on during our workshops. We all have different implementation plans, and we will work very hard to come up with a plan that works for you and your classroom. You can have this as a full class participation, or you can do what I did and have this be an after-school club. One of the neat things about this project is that it's gender neutral. The guitar is just an iconic piece, and people connect with it regardless of age, gender, socioeconomic class, whatever. This is just a fantastic way to start a conversation with the community in your STEM classroom. So it is gender neutral. Students already have an interest. We have a high success rate for completed guitars, and we define a successful guitar as one that leaves that is fully playable. So we have a 99% rate at the college level, and that's just absolutely fantastic. So Doug is going to also continue talking about why it works in his classroom.
Yeah, about why it works. People work collaboratively, and while they may be building their own guitars, certainly, which is the individualistic aspect, they will help each other and work in small groups to kind of solve problems throughout the build as they encounter them, and in the curriculum classroom portion as well. It appeals to all student groups, like Debbie said. It's an iconic object that everybody can identify with and recognize in some way. And so as they go through each of the different activities and they build in each separate aspect of the project, they get this confidence of, yeah, I did that. And they may go into it uncertain. They may go into it with some trepidation, just as some of you felt with different aspects of it in the summer workshop. But you'll have this sense of confidence that, yeah, I did it, and I can do that, and look at what I did, look at what I did, look what I learned, and they want to share and explain with people what they've done. And the project can generate the interest and involvement as well when the word gets out that this is what's going on in school. You'll have folks interested from different quarters that may not have previously had anything with your department or with you as a teacher at that school, taking advantage of local newspapers, and if you can get local television to come visit when the guitars are finished, are both excellent ways to spread the word and get the word out what's happening in your school with the project. It's not anywhere near as expensive to begin with as certain other projects, other activities that you might do that are project-based learning that incorporate STEM. The costs are under $1,000 or less in schools and so forth to go ahead and have a lab to be able to work with guitar building. And there are different methods of being able to make it sustainable by auctioning off finished instruments as a spring fundraiser, or to have guitar sales of completed instruments, even taking order at the beginning of the year for instruments. So there are a number of different ways to implement, like Debbie mentioned, and that will be one of the topics that we cover in the workshop, or different strategies to try to consider how you might make this happen at your school.
Hey, Doug. Pretty much everybody runs into hurdles as they try to implement this particular project.
Sure.
A lot of times it might be space, sometimes it might be financial, sometimes it might be administration hurdles. How did you overcome those hurdles? And if any of the other presenters want to join in also, they can.
Yeah, I know. I think Nancy Cheng should jump in on this one, but I found it was a relatively easy sell. There was a lot of excitement and interest once the idea of this began to circulate. So I didn't have very many obstacles to my way to be able to do this, because I was already set up with a material processing lab. So we had a lot of the general working tools, we had lab space, we had interested students, and I had a supportive administration. So I can't say that I had a great many obstacles to implementing this, but this is definitely something for Debbie and Nancy to talk about things that they did.
But you've had some financial hurdles.
There were. Students found difficulty in affording the tickets initially. That was the biggest obstacle. And we were able to get creative with some fundraiser activity to be able to offset that. We did custom carved wood signs with our CNC machines. The first year or two that we did the project, we did custom signs, and students were able to generate revenue from taking signs, designing signs, and cutting them and delivering them to the customer. That was one way we got on.
Go into your butt, just so I may not hear you. Just call me.
Okay, Nancy.
Tom, excuse me for interrupting for a second. It's Mike, the moderator today. I'd like to ask anyone who's logged into the system via the telephone to please use the mute button, because we're picking up some background from telephone audio. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Tom.
Now, I was going to introduce Nancy Cheng and ask her, what hurdles did you have to overcome to get this implemented at Edmonds Heights as a math faculty that is typically not a technology instructor where you might have a lab to actually build an instrument in?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Well, I had huge hurdles in implementing in the beginning, because number one, the guitar was the very first thing I'd ever built in my life. So there was that. Also, we had no shop, we had no tools, and but we were just, my teaching partner Kathy Webb and I were just completely committed to implementing, the month after we finished our Guitar Building Institute. So in fact, we already had a full class of students already registered and ready to go. So we spent the first few months with our students setting up our shop space, and we ended up, the principal, we did have a very supportive principal, so we were lucky in that way. But he said, okay, well, there's this locker room that nobody uses. It's from, it probably hasn't been touched since the 70s, and we can use that space and just start setting up some tools back there. And we ended up finding some things in storage in a back room of the building we're in, and getting things that parents sent in from home, like an extra drill or this and that, and little by little we ended up just creating a space out of nothing. And now we do have our own little shop space and much a better set of tools. But getting the kids involved with that, I think, was the way we overcame it. And I'll probably talk a little bit more about that later when we talk about what to expect at the Institute, and how to overcome some of the things ways to prepare for the Institute.
Perfect, perfect. Doug, I didn't want to totally break your mojo there on the presentation. However, I wanted to make sure that people understood that even us as presenters and being involved in this, we all had to overcome hurdles at our institutions to get this accomplished. And even though the hurdles are out there, they can be jumped over, and there is always a way to find a solution to the problem, or others within our network around the United States have found a solution to accomplishing getting over that hurdle. Doug, would you please talk a little bit about how we're now aligning our curriculum?
Yeah, so our curriculum alignment that we develop and that you will develop at the Summer Institute will be to the Common Core Math standards and to the Next Gen Science standards. It's state standards with 50 states and all the different states that we participate in with workshops. It's not realistic to expect that we're going to be able to finish everybody that comes to guitarbuilding.org with curriculum aligned to a particular state. But with the widespread, not usual, but fairly widespread adoption and recognition of Common Core and Next Gen Science standards, that serves pretty well as a common denominator for standards for math and science and engineering standards. And so you'll find lesson plans on the website that are aligned to, and when you have an opportunity during the course of the week to develop a new lesson plan of your own, one of the things you'll do is align with Common Core Next Gen Science standards. And additionally, it's usable at your home school. We would anticipate that you would have access to your own stage for alignment. The slide that's showing now is showing a portion of the lesson plan format that we employ in our template. And the bottom portion of this slide is showing the standards for the Common Core Math standards. And it looks like 5 of them have been identified to go with this particular activity. And again, if you're not comfortable with curriculum alignment, if you haven't done a whole lot of it, we will go through it. We've all done activities before and done curriculum alignment with the standards for the website. So at each of the site locations you should know going into it that each of the instructors has done it, and we have worked with it, and you're not going to be just thrown into the deep end and expected to be able to do all of it on the first try. There will be support. There will be people who help you with that.
Perfect. So there's quite a few expectations that you'll have of us as presenters as we go through the week. But we also have some expectations for you during the next school year. And a lot of these expectations are also tied to financial incentives through our National Science Foundation project. And that's what makes this such a beautiful opportunity for you, is that as you start to implement, and we initially ask you to do some basic implementation, at that point you get rewarded, and that will help start the financial funding for this project for you. So as Doug had indicated, what our requirements are is that we're going to ask you to develop a modular learning activity. Now, modules, they all have different connotations throughout the United States. So the reason why we specify a modular learning activity is that it can range from a multi-day activity or a single-day activity. That's your decision. Sometimes people have block schedules. Sometimes people have 50-minute class schedules. Again, you design your modular learning activity around the instrument as you see how you would like to implement it into your classroom. We ask you that you're going to start to begin thinking about this and start developing it. We don't expect it to be finished during the Institute. That's a lot to ask. So what we're asking you to do is to at least get your plan in place and potentially know exactly what your topic. And during the week-long activity list, one of the activities is sharing the implementation plan along with your modular learning activity topic. Once you submit your activity, it'll get reviewed by our faculty team, and it will, after review, you might get some peer comments on it, and once that is accomplished and any modifications or changes are made, we then post it on guitarbuilding.org because there's hundreds of other instructors that would love to utilize your curriculum in their classroom also, and you can do the same. We're starting to post last year's participants' curriculum now up on our website, and so that's part of the evolution of how our project is going to continue to grow, is by sharing. We provide you the templates. You don't have to design anything. A lot of it is fill in the blank, and as Doug indicated, that's part of what we instruct on during the week together. We also ask you to take 2 of our core modular learning activities. We as a team have developed 12 or 14, I think it's going to be closer to 14 or 15 depending upon how many we get completed between now and June, activities that you can download for free, no cost. We provide you the quizzing tools to go along with that. And so the activities, we'll ask you to select 2. And there's math activities, there's science activities, there's technology activities that you can choose from. So it bridges a wide variety of implementation skills and gives you the opportunity to choose which works best for your curriculum. We're not asking you to replace all of your curriculum. What we're doing is asking you to supplement your curriculum with a couple of our activities to see how the students react. That helps you gauge the level of interest going forward also. Once you've accomplished that task of creating a modular learning activity and implementing 2 activities and quizzes, and again, we'll give you the Kia software, and if you're familiar with Kia, there's a fee involved, so we actually cover the cost of that software package. We've created the quizzes. You download them into your class. What we as a grant group get out of that is the aggregate data. So we're not interested that Johnny received an 8 on the first test and a 10 on the second test. The actual score itself is not critical, but aggregate-wise, did Johnny get a level of learning from the pre to post? And speaking of pre and post testing, I know in the state of Ohio that is a critical issue now for faculty to show learning gains in the classroom. Matter of fact, many of their pay raises in many of the school districts in the state of Ohio are now based on the pre-post learning gains. And we're providing the tools for you to actually utilize that in your classroom to gain pre-post learning data. Once those are implemented, you receive 400 guitar bucks. Now, guitar bucks is a gift certificate that you can use to purchase tools and supplies, kits, anything on the guitarbuilding.org website. And so it gives you an opportunity to actually jumpstart the implementation process. And in addition, we're also going to ask you to have some follow-up surveys, both with your students and personal retrospectives. And that will earn some personal funding opportunities for you towards the end of the school year. Once we receive the first 3 items, the 2 quizzes, the 1 modular learning activity, that triggers us to then send out the survey at the end of the year. And so we've kind of mentioned some of the funding that you'll receive. So directly, the fellowship package is actually worth more than $1,300. There are some surprises that you'll receive also that we don't want to tip the full hand over, but ultimately you'll receive a $300 cash stipend. Now you'll notice that Seattle is a unique event, and the Seattle event is actually a paid event. As our grant project winds down, we're going to still continue to look for funding to help support this, but we also may need to go to a model, and we're testing that model in the Seattle area this year. You'll get access to a free Kia account for your modular learning activity implementation. You're going to receive a guitar support package. Again, we're going to leave that kind of open and big picture. And ultimately, you're going to walk away with a custom electric guitar that you're going to construct during the 5 half days. And you're thinking, how are we going to get this done in just 24 hours? It happens all the time. We've talked about the guitar bucks already, and we also talked about the personal compensation once you complete the surveys towards the end of the year. And again, NSF requires us to collect data on our participants, and we ask you to do the Kia quizzes because it's very unique that we're able to get direct interaction with students with such a large project. And so collecting that data actually trickles from NSF all the way through your local congressman. And so you can let your local congressman know that you're involved in a NSF-funded project because Congress actually votes on the National Science Foundation funding each year. Debbie, would you like to talk about one of the brand new opportunities that are going to be available, that's going to be available starting this year?
Yes, my pleasure. We just got final approval on offering a graduate level course called Lead with Guitars in STEM. It is a 3 graduate credit hour course offered by the University of Wyoming's outreach program. It is only $150 total. That means $50 a credit hour, which is really reasonable. So the requirements are that you attend and actively participate in the week-long Faculty Professional Development Institute, completion of additional homework and Kia assignments during the institute, 1 additional complete modular learning activity after completion of the institute over the summer, submit participating students' responses to 3 to 4 Kia pre- and post-test quizzes, and just fill out the required paperwork from the University of Wyoming. It is very easy. It is only a half a page, and they take checks or credit cards, whichever makes your bunny hop. And we will have registration forms available at each workshop. And just the caveat is that you can't use this graduate credit to transfer into a graduate program here, but it will definitely help you reach those hours that you might need to for a pay scale.
This is a great opportunity. Yeah, this is the very first time that we've been able to offer this type of opportunity to our participants. So we encourage you to take advantage of it because the professional development, as you'll notice, there's one other change. So we're asking you to do 3 to 4 initial Kia quizzes. So we're adding an additional Kia quiz to that task of completing the graduate level credit. Some surveys and data collection. So what happens with all this data that we're collecting? And we've mentioned about that the Kia is going to be data collected, and then you'll receive some surveys throughout the year. And those surveys are managed through the University of Cincinnati Evaluation Services Department. It's a regulated environment. The data is collected through them, directly with them. There's very few people that know specifically who is who. everybody will have a specific login number, and so you'll be submitting your work using your specific login number that you'll receive at the Institute itself. So rest assured, we have specific groups that monitor and survey us every year to ensure that the data is managed properly, and not only is your student data safe, but your personal data is also safe through our particular collection process. Mike, we've come up on our first Q&A session. Has there been any questions? And go ahead and kind of focus any questions to our presenters.
Sure. There was a little bantering going on between, let me see. It was between Dave and Max and Debbie. And they were talking about recruiting girls into the program. And Debbie was chatting back and forth. And Debbie, I'm just going to, and Nancy, I guess because you're the two gals in the program, I get very few girls. I don't know that I specifically recruit for them, but I do get them. And I'd like to, maybe you girls could fill in some of the gaps. The questions were, how do you recruit girls into the class? How do we get more girls? So I'm just going to let you two ladies speak to that for a minute, and then I'll address the other questions.
Sure, Mike. I had no problems attracting girls to implementing the guitar build. A lot of my students that built the guitars never played. The rationale was most of my students who did play, they had 2, 3, 4 guitars at home, and their parents weren't paying for another one, so they would just help. And they were especially helpful when we strung up the guitars. But there was one year I had 13 students and one parent who built a guitar. He came to school at our parent open house night and raised his hand and said, I don't care if my daughter builds, but I am. And he was a wonderful resource. He was a local engineer and woodworker, and he built right along my students after school. But I've just always had at least equal amounts of girls or greater amounts, and I never did anything in particular. Nancy, what about you?
Let me come back there. Nancy may have stepped away. One of the other questions was regarding, I think Bruce said, hey, what if I just jump off the cliff and put a full class in? Bruce, as it was mentioned before, in this project you can wear paisleys and stripes. It seems like there's no real way to get started with this. We have people do it before school clubs, after school clubs, depending on what's involved in instituting it as a class. We have people go back the very next semester and spin a class. So one of the values of the workshops is that we get to spend a week together with all of us brainstorming how some of us have and how some of you might implement it. Another question got into the money. I think Dave asked, or somebody had asked about, do the students have to pay a lab fee? Dave Smale asked this. And typically across the country, Dave, I know we do, we have a $180 lab fee. It looks like Dave Parker adds a couple bucks for consumables. And again, I think this is as varied as the people that will attend our workshops. Doug Hunt had a very creative way of helping some of the people in his school, because he comes from a very, very, very high percentage of free and reduced lunches, which is a bit of a economic barometer of the area. And what he did was he said to his students, hey, if you want to build a guitar, I got some pine here, sell 5 signs for 20 bucks. And they made signs, I should let Doug comment on that, and that was a way for them to supplement money for the fee. Doug, do you want to talk to that just a little bit, how you did that?
Well, I mean, I kind of mentioned it earlier, and you've kind of covered it. It's I made flares up and an order form rather, and I gave students order forms and sent them out and said, if you want to earn some money for your guitar kit, here. And we had a couple signs that we would do, and I basically give them the fee that they generated minus the cost for the materials. So it was fairly lucrative for them, and the whole purpose was to get some money in their pocket in a hurry. And I did that for a couple of years when students seemed to be really struggling with paying for the kits, and it was a great thing because people got an opportunity to give some signage. Oh, the kids at the school made that. They felt good about knowing that they were helping the students out because it was we were real upfront about why we were doing this, and it was a win-win all around. It taught the kids some responsibility. They understood that they had to make something for a customer, that it had to be right, that it couldn't be close or poorly done. It had to meet the specs, and they learned some responsibility and the idea that they could do things to earn money, get what they wanted. And I thought that was an important lesson.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Hey, one more question here. Let me find it. I'm sorry. Carl had a question. He said, in my case, the class will not be able to be available for the 16-17 school year, as the district requires a bit of a process. And Carl, we totally understand that. We see this quite often. You don't have to implement the very next year. What I would encourage you to do, though, is in order to get those guitar bucks, just use some of our activities. If you do some activities and your students do the quizzes and you do the criteria that we had asked with 2 learning activities, you can continue to be in the loop for the guitar bucks in lieu of waiting to an official class in 2016 and 2017. And again, folks, as we wrap up this first Q&A session, please jot your questions down there. I'm doing the best I can to write them down and to go back. And also keep in mind that if you didn't think we answered your question sufficiently, you can email us, as well as the resources when we're together. We're all going to be together in the same spot for a week, and I think we get a lot of value out of that. So this ends the first Q&A period, Tom, and I'll let you go to the next one.
Perfect. And we're going to go ahead and originally we were going to insert a video here, but we decided to minimize the time. What we will do is encourage you to go out to guitarbuilding.org. We have a boatload of resources available for you to use. Search around it a little bit. We actually put in a new search feature just in the last 2 weeks, so you can actually do a site search within guitarbuilding.org for specific items. Christy had a tool list request. She has the opportunity to write a grant to possibly get this started. And we have a lot of different resources. We've got resources that will cover how the class will look in a 16-week type semester environment. You can take that, manipulate that. We've got outlines. We've got the actual key projects that you can download to implement. All that's up there and available to you currently. So I'll encourage everybody to go out on guitarbuilding.org and check that out. I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and Mark's got some interesting comments regarding how our team actually interacts. Mark?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously you see from the picture here there's a pretty good cross-section of the group, though that's certainly not everybody. I'm not going to try to tell you, go through everybody's bios. You can do that on guitarbuilding.org. There's going to be bio information from almost everybody in the group. I'm going to focus on the first 2 people. Tom Singer, who, if you haven't met him, is the guy on the very far left of the picture, is a professor at Sinclair Community College and has been building guitars since, like he said, 2006. I don't know how many he's built. It's been a lot. Tom doesn't know how to play a guitar. I get this question a lot from my students and from the students through the workshops here, is, do I need to know how to play a guitar? No, you don't. It's the skill set that you need to make a guitar and to understand how it works and to use it as a powerful teaching tool is a very different skill set than the one needed to actually play the thing. So if you're sitting here listening to this thinking, well, I don't know how to play one, is that a deal breaker? Absolutely not. Do you know who else didn't know how to play a guitar and as far as I can tell never learned? Leo Fender. In case you're wondering who he is, look at the red sign above Tom's head. That's from Fender Guitars, which, if not the largest guitar maker in the world, is at least the peer of the largest. They're absolutely an iconic American company. You know, Leo managed to pull it off. He was actually a radio repairman. The next person on the list is Doug Hunt. And again, if you haven't met Doug, just look to Tom's, I guess it would be Tom's left, standing between the lady with the pink sweater, that's Imelda, and the lady with the, I guess that's a scarf on. And Doug is probably the other end of the spectrum. You know, again, I don't have any idea how many guitars Doug has made. It's certainly quite a lot. But Doug is a blues player of a pretty high order. He's playing in Chicago on stage pretty routinely and is pretty routinely channels his inner B.B. King. I watched him at one of the workshops. Somebody brought in this crazy shoebox guitar. They actually made it out of a cardboard shoebox and put a very non-standard neck on it that had 3 strings and some of the frets missing and all kinds of stuff. It looked like it was probably like a dulcimer neck, if I remember right. Doug messed around with it for about 10 minutes and started playing, and it sounded great. So it certainly isn't going to hurt if you know how to play a guitar. Absolutely not. But you don't need to. If you don't know how, that's fine. The other thing I can tell you is that if you can play 3 chords, if you want to go really exotic, 4 chords, you can play essentially every country song ever written and about half the rock songs ever written, 3/4 maybe. The group you see here and the others not included have a pretty broad background. Some of us are instructors in 2-year colleges. I'm at a 4-year college. Some of us are high school instructors. Some of us have other backgrounds, and it's a nice, a very broad group serving you. And maybe a hint that as you put your teams together, there's lots of room for varying backgrounds. People with a pretty broad range of skills can be very important contributors to your team as you assemble them. So I think I'll stop right there unless people have questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it's really interesting. We've actually had the business department come over and help us do financial analysis on the projects. The manufacturing group has come over to do time studies. Since we actually manufacture the instruments, they're able to utilize us as a manufacturing site to actually do time studies with. So there's opportunities to partner with other areas within your institution. We've had technical writers in English join us, and so partnering with the English department to do technical reports, because as a technology and engineering instructor, my students love writing those research papers, and so we actually have the ability and have had some faculty partner with the tech English faculty to accomplish those tasks. So again, partner up, learn who's also might be interested in helping get this off the ground, because you don't know who your next partner may be, and it's a lot of fun having a project in your institution that doesn't necessarily have a specific silo and can broadly base and cover many different areas. Nancy is going to talk a little bit about how to get the most out of the Guitar Building Institute that you're going to be joining us at coming up here in June or July. Nancy?
Thanks, Tom. Before we look at a typical day at the Guitar Building Institute, I just want to share with you a couple of things that my teaching partner, Kathy Webb, and I wished that we had known before attending our first institute. That was back in August of 2011, And we attended an institute in Richland, Washington. Our instructors were Ed Ufford, who is going to join us in Maine this summer, and Dave Lake, who is another instructor too.
Ed is
Since
actually
that time,
online.
Kathy and I have. Oh, great. Since we learned from Dave and Ed back then, Kathy and I have co-taught 3 years worth of guitar building with our high school students. We do a semester-long class, so that's 6 semesters. And but looking back, we realized there was many things we could have done to be better prepared for our first institute. I mean, we found out about it and signed up and were there within, a month and a half. So let's see. Let's go to the next slide here. So first of all, in addition to the specific homework that Tom's going to explain to you in a little bit, one thing that you can do to prepare yourself is explore the guitarbuilding.org website. Most of you might be a little familiar with that because the application was online, so I know you've been there. But I would take time to revisit that, watch the how-to videos, and look through photos and things that you see on the site. Also, check out our Facebook page and like that. There's a lot of information there too. The videos we didn't watch until after we'd already learned how to build, and we were watching them with our students. And each time I watched one, we thought, oh, that would have been great to know. But we got through our first build just great. I was a person who had never built anything before, so as I said earlier, and so I had to have a lot of personal attention from my instructors. But getting through everything was just so satisfying, and it really helps you to know how your students are going to feel on a first-time build, especially if they had not been in shot classes before or built anything before. Anyway, you'll see when you get there. But while going through the website and videos, I would ask you to think about how that's going to look in your classroom or workspace, and take down some notes and make a list of questions that you can bring with you to the Institute. And that'll give you a lot more direction once you're in your session this summer. At the Institute, you're also going to be engaged in some curriculum development. So you're going to need knowledge and access to your state's learning standards. So I'd make sure you're prepared for that. Bring either a hard copy of your standards if you prefer to have things printed out so you can write on it, or at least a link to your standards so that you can refer to them as you go through the Institute. So as I had mentioned before, when Kathy and I arrived in Richland for our first build, we drove over from Seattle, we had a definite goal in mind. And our goal was to build guitars with our students full on the very next month. In fact, we'd already written a course description and syllabus and had uploaded it to the school's online fall registration. By August, before we attended the workshop, we already had a group of 16 students already enrolled and ready to go the following month. And not only did Kathy and I not know how to build a guitar, we had not even attended the Institute. We knew nothing. So we had no experience with power tools or anything of that sort. We did not have a workshop space or any kind of a construction area. So the commitment, though, that came with just setting the goal of like, well, we're building. We have to do it. We've already got a class of students, and that's the expectation. So that just became our prime objective. And later in September, as I mentioned before, we just began with having our students create the workspace. And in fact, this really helped the students take ownership of the space and the project. This process is documented in a student-created video that's posted on guitarbuilding.org on the website under, I think, Teacher Shared Materials. And you should check that out if you want to see firsthand how our experience looked at our school when we first began. Your goal, though, if you're not able to do a full-on build right away, your goal could be to integrate the guitar building into your existing curriculum. If you're, like, I'm a math teacher, so another thing I do is just to use the activities and the quizzes and lessons that you'll receive when you'll be introduced to when you go to your institute. But those can just be integrated right into a regular class as they are already. Building could be a goal that you have for your future. Now, since your classes are going to be in the summer, it's going, depending on your location, you're going to be alternating between really hot weather and, possibly air conditioning if you're lucky. But the first stages of the guitar build involve a lot of physical labor. And what I mean by that is sanding, for a long time. I know when I made my first guitar, I was not used to that level of physical, labor in building something. As a math teacher, we just pretty much stand in front and talk, maybe circulate about the room. But by my first day of guitar building, I was covered in dust, exhausted, my arms ached from sanding. Of course, it was all worth it, and the students are going to feel the same way. But due to the nature of that work, make sure you wear closed-toe, comfortable shoes, no flip-flops or that sort of thing. And you'll need clothes you can move in, layers, and be prepared for varying temperatures and activity levels. Also, we may have some available. Don't count on that. So if possible, bring your own safety glasses, hearing protection, and a dust mask.
Hey, Nancy, if I could spin two on that. Nancy, yeah, if I could jump in real quick. This is Doug Hunt.
Yeah.
The first day or two, you probably don't want to wear anything very dark because of all the sanding dust. It's going to stand out, and it'll just show all the dust if you're wearing a dark sweatshirt or a dark T-shirt. So light-colored clothes the first couple of days with all the dust.
That's a good idea. Although I know Tom has mentioned before that if you're all covered in dust and residue from building, that makes you look really cool. So you could do that either way.
It is its own sort of badge of honor. That's true. A typical day at the guitar building workshop, each of the 5 days is planned out and mapped out in advance. You will be receiving, each of you in your email very shortly, a tentative draft of the schedule for the week at your individual institution for the summer workshop you're going to attend. And you'll notice when you get that the mornings are the domain of the classroom. And we will be going through introductions. We'll be talking about data collection and the NSF grant, and we'll show how to log into Kia and how to take the Kia quizzes ourselves, and with the pre and post survey or pre and post quiz. We'll discuss lesson plan development. We'll go over again the incentive package, and there will be forms to fill out for EE9 if there's any personal payments that have to take place. The particulars about reimbursement for expenses will be gone over. In those morning sessions, we'll do some preliminary planning and have some time to discuss and kick some ideas around of how you might implement this. Nancy was talking about come with a plan, have an idea for what you want this to look like. There will be time, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday to have some time to discuss with everybody in more of a group setting what this could look like. You'll get some ideas as the week progresses. So you come in with an idea on Monday, and by the end of the week, your idea will have probably transformed and changed. If anything, it'll be sharper. It'll be clearer. The afternoon times are spent in the lab, and that we're going to actually do the heavy lifting on building the guitars. And to think that we're going to take a group of 15 to 20 folks and take them through guitar build in the afternoons only, in just a few days, they're going to leave with functioning guitars that play. It's a tall order, and it may seem a bit daunting for all of us on the front end of it, but everybody gets through. All the guitars are going to go through, and we're going to play. You're going to come each day, and I know everybody gives it their all when they're there, and it's a great time. Everybody gets them finished. We cover all the major aspects of the initial sanding. There are some important holes that have to be drilled. We talk about body shaping and sculpting. There are some danger areas and danger zones that you don't want to mess with different aspects of the guitar so that it technically does what it's supposed to. And we go through the finishing process. We do all that work on the neck. And inside and out, you're going to know everything about your guitar, and you're going to come away with a completely different view of guitars. And if you see a guitar that's been manufactured in a factory somewhere, you'll look at it and say, oh yeah, I know about that, I know that. And it does, it smashes a lot of misconceptions, and it kind of tears down some of the aura and some of the mystique about guitar building once you've made one yourself.
So how does the classroom typically look like?
So your work time is kind of divided between being in the computer lab and being in a construction area. So typically in the mornings, we're in the computer lab, and during that time you have opportunities to do some of the curriculum activities and assessments. You have time to brainstorm with others and develop your own original activities, and you'll have time for planning your own guitar, such as creating your headstock design and that sort of thing. And it's also during this time that we'll begin to connect various STEM concepts that are integrated into guitar building and learning standards. Did you have anything to add to that, Doug?
No, I think we're good. We're gonna. There are a dozen or so, give or take, activities on the guitarbuilding.org website, and we'll go through 2 or 3 of them during the course of the week. So you'll experience firsthand what it's like to go through the learning activities that are on the site, so that when you go back to your home school and eventually do implement, and you take students through the activities on the website to do the key pre and post, you've already done that, and you know exactly what that feels like and what that's like to go through that. That's an important aspect of what we're doing in the morning sessions with the classroom time.
And then once we're done with the computer lab portion of our day, we're over in the construction lab, and this is where all the action happens. We spend a good deal of time over there. Can you describe that, Doug?
We start out with the bodies come out of the box where they've been shipped to the location, and they are raw right out of the CNC machine, so they require all of sanding and sculpting and shaping and smoothing to go from something that's really on the kind of rough side of things to be ready to be finished over the course of the several afternoons that we have to work on them. And the same thing is true with the neck. We'll spend some time doing some headstock design in the morning session on the computers or on pencil and paper, depending on the lab situation. And then in the afternoons, you'll get to customize and personalize your guitar by shaping the headstock, modifying the body to include contours to make it more comfortable. And we'll go through all the acts of fretting it and making it a playable instrument, not something that just looks like a guitar. And then the nuts and bolts of all the electronics, talk about pickups and how you solder things together and make the connections to make it actually send a signal out from the vibrating string to an amplifier. And then there's little setup tasks that tend to be kind of fiddly and fussy, with getting the guitar tuned and setting the string heights and getting it intonated. And all these things that we see in the afternoon session are things that are valuable skills when you're talking about things that somebody who plays a guitar needs a repair or maintenance would have to find the luthier and pay, sometimes hefty fees to have some of these things done. These are, as a side bonus, we're learning all these things. You get to share those with your students as well.
Okay. So that brings us back to Q&A with Mike Akins.
Okay, here we are again with some questions. Again, I'm trying to follow the bantering going on here, and I'm just going to back it up and come up with the first question. Question about amplifiers. Should the lab space have access to an amplifier? So suggestions. We use really small little practice amplifiers, and they seem to work fine. Question was, should we bring our laptops, iPad, etc.? Yeah, I would. I mean, I know at our lab here, everybody will have a PC, but I would bring my laptop if you're more comfortable with that. We will be working extensively out of guitarbuilding.org. That is like the tip of the spear for us. We get all of our resources there. Okay, so a lot of people mentioned bringing their laptop. Another thing we do on Friday is we want you to intonate with an online oscilloscope. And a lot of individuals do like to have their own personal laptop for that, because then they can plug the guitar right into it. Let me see, what else are we doing here? I see something about Hawaiian shirts. I'm not sure what I want to say about that. Not just because Mark French wore a Hawaiian shirt with pictures of his books now. I guess that's the theme of the Hawaiian shirts here.
What can I say? I'm a trendsetter.
You are. And I'll tell you what, if anybody can get away with it, you can.
Mike, can I chime in here?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a high school teacher, so I don't have all the experiences you have, but one thing I get from all my students and from all my workshops, including the high school workshops, is there's always somebody in there who says, well, I've got this great set of pickups I got off of eBay, and they're these special hand-wound in Tibet under the full moon, and they are made with dragon's blood and whatever. Can I use those? If you say yes, you are going to open up the floodgates.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it becomes a scramble for who can bring in the most custom hardware. I would strongly advise you to say no to that. And the words I tend to use is, we're going to do it my way this first time, but after this, the second guitar you build, go crazy, do whatever you want. And I learned this the hard way too. I didn't know this when I started.
That's a good point, Mark, and I'm just going to add to that. You know, students will come up to me exactly what you said, and my canned comment is, let's build the first guitar first. And when you get that home, if you want to switch the pickups out, you should be able to do that. And if you can't, something terrible has happened. You know, so they will be able to do that. Another question here, question about the length of the days. I know here at Butler, we go till 5 about every day. You know, we go to 5. The first day tends to be the longest. We're pretty determined to get everybody at the same place every night when we leave. But typically our days go to about 5. And Friday, we would like to, you know, have you get out of here somewhere between 2 and 5 o'clock, and that really depends on how that Friday afternoon went. Let me see. There was a question. Somebody asked and said that they were a fab lab and they've got CNC router and other digital fabrication equipment. We have all of the geometry available for you so that you can certainly cut out your own bodies and necks. And we've done that. We've done that quite a bit actually here at the college. So I think that's the last bit of questions here. Again, if I missed your question, please forgive. I'll try to get it the next time. And if there was something, again, that you don't feel satisfied you got your answer and you don't get it today, please email us. We'll certainly get back to you on that.
Hey, Mike, Fred has a question regarding safety. Say something regarding the safety issues, lab work, and students. Now, typically, now at Sinclair, what we do is part of our first day, and any time that we introduce a new piece of equipment that they're going to use, even if it's a drill, we talk about the safety components of that particular item. Typically, in our area, we'll have drill presses, sanders, a bandsaw that the students will typically utilize during the construction process of their instrument. With that being said, we take the time to ensure that each student understands the equipment that they're using. We also try to, and during the week, what we'll do as a instructional team is station ourselves at specific pieces of equipment to help everybody through the process to get a level of understanding and a level of comfort of using the equipment itself. But the safety component, I know that I typically do a safety instruction component in the very beginning of the class, and then every time that we introduce new tools.
Okay, I'm going to respond. Thanks, Tom. I'm going to respond to something Lucas was asking. He asked if the guitars are mostly built from a kit, or from scratch? For instance, do we cut the grooves for our own frets, or do we buy a fretboard with grooves already cut? Do the bodies get cut out with a bandsaw, etc.? Do they get cut out, pre-cut with a CNC machine? When you implement, Lucas, and the rest of you, if you choose to use the kits that we provide, all the fretboards, the necks, and the bodies are all cut out with a CNC router. Now, again, when I first started this, I used the kits, and then I went and started cutting our own bodies out because I wanted to do that. And there's been a couple semesters now where I've just been too busy to get to that, and I'll go back and I'll use the kits. You can teach as much math and science and STEM content whether you are cutting your own bodies or not cutting your own bodies. But I wanted to respond to that. So Tom, I'm going to turn this back to you for the next slide.
Perfect. So Mike and I are going to introduce our homework assignment for everybody for their particular institute. So the people who have institutes in July get an extra month of time to get the homework turned in. However, the people who have institutes in June will have their guitars finished a month earlier than the participants in July. So to start and get everybody on the same level of general knowledge about guitars, and as Mark indicated and Mike has indicated, what is it, 8 years ago now, I knew zero about guitars. What interests me was the manufacturing of the instrument. Could we manufacture an instrument? How is it put together? What the supply chain looks like, and so forth. So what was interesting is that first Purdue Guitar Workshop that Mike and I attended, I was the only person in the room that didn't know how to play. And everybody looked at me like, what are you doing here? Now we routinely have students that don't know how to play but are making a guitar for some other family member. And there was a question earlier regarding recruiting of female students. We market in the art and music areas of our college, and we get a lot of students attending the class from those areas. So getting back to our homework assignment, Mike, what we're going to ask everybody to do, and it's up on guitarbuilding.org, and the homework assignment is going to talk about guitar anatomy and cost estimation. And when you do the guitar anatomy component, you're learning about the parts and pieces and the terminology of the guitar. And it's really important to understand the terminology, so when you walk into Guitar Center and somebody is asking you a question, you have the actual knowledge of, all right, I feel comfortable, I feel confident about talking about what the headstock shape is, and why do we have inline 6 tuners, or why are there tuners 3 on each side, and what's the difference, and does that make a difference in playability or sound? The guitar part cost analysis gets you to the next level. So not only do you learn the terminology, but we also ask you to go out and price out components. And when you go through this exercise, this gives you an idea of what the general guitar part costs are, not only the names, where are they located, who are some of the vendors that you may end up working with to get a couple of extra parts if a student breaks one or loses the parts out of their kit box. And so we're going to ask you to visit some of our vendor partners. Stuart McDonald is the vendor that we purchase our current guitar kits from. The actual hardware pieces, they actually import them for us. The guitar parts are imported from South Korea and from other countries in Southeast Asia to keep our costs down. And as we go through this, you'll find that other vendors like All Parts and Guitar Fetish also have good pricing on individual guitar parts. What you will find, well, I better not turn the cards over on what you will find in your pricing scheme. Now, the one thing that we ask is that, yes, you can buy parts off of eBay. Now, the parts off of eBay typically come from China, which are still, in many cases, okay quality. And the key is that as long as Mike and I and Mark and Debbie and Nancy and Doug can purchase the parts, you're covered. If it's a Cousin Vinny deal out of their trunk, we can't get the same deal off of Cousin Vinny out of his trunk. So that kind of deal we can't take care of. So going on Craigslist and purchasing parts off of Craigslist where it's local and we don't necessarily have access to it, that won't necessarily qualify. Mike, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I would just encourage you folks, when you do this activity, when you go to guitarbuilding.org and you scroll down to the front page is quite long, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the front page, you'll see a graphic of a guitar, and it's item number 5. It's a little balloon pointing to, I think, the body, and it says Guitar Anatomy. And when you hover your cursor over that, you'll see there's an activity connected to that. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is this is the kind of activity that we're going to take you through to build and to create using the state standards, Common Core, Next Gen, whatever your district standards are. That's what we're going to have you develop your activity around. But my point is, you know, this activity is to get, as Tom said, to get the students comfortable with the pieces and parts. It also lets them know, because I tell my students, hey, no dollar amount, you can have at it. You know, a student will come up, oh, $1,400, $1,500, you know, $800, $400, and the kit was $175 or whatever, $180, whatever you're going to mark it up, and it's still kind of a good buy. The main reason is to get them comfortable with the pieces and parts of the guitar. And the other thing it does let them see that they're getting a pretty good deal. And other than that, I don't know what, when you open up the activity, you'll see there's a spreadsheet there. It'll calculate the cost, the total cost. When you'll have to look over the columns real carefully, and you'll see that there's a fretted neck and there's a non-fretted neck, I believe. And if you're going to get a neck that's fretted, which it probably will, that's different than buying a neck and a fretboard and fret wire, etc. But I think that's about all I have to add to that, Tom.
Yeah, and we're actually going to cover this particular homework assignment on Monday morning. So we want you to bring this homework assignment completed on Monday morning, because this is one of the items that we will, at each of the institutes, cover. Mike, do we accept any excuses for not having the homework completed?
The best one I had was a chinchilla peed on my homework. That was valid. That was a valid excuse there. No, and all joking aside, we would like you folks to come prepared, and by doing this, that's part of that. This used to be our first activity in the workshop, and what we did, this continuous quality improvement mode that we have, not only with refining the design of the guitar and the neck of the guitar, but we also do that to the institutes. And we found that when you come prepared, having this anatomy exercise done already, that's time and hours in the morning that we can use for other things. So we would just really appreciate you have a little fun with that and come to the first day of your institute, in whatever state that it's in, and be prepared to discuss that on Monday morning.
Yep. This is kind of our final question and answer wrap up. It's about 20 after the hour, and we've got a slide here with the Q&A, and then we have one more wrap-up slide after this with all of our takeaways. So I'll post the wrap-up slide also. And Debbie, if there's any questions, if we want to direct them to any particular of the moderators here, that would be perfect.
Sure, thank you, Tom. Bruce asked if there's going to be a reminder for the homework, and absolutely, Bruce, I'm right there with you with the end of semester wrap-up, so we will send a reminder out before your workshop. And Brenda said that she had had some technical difficulties, and we are going to make the link to the webinar available to all of you in case you did have technical difficulties throughout this or want to review it, and then, of course, for the folks that aren't here. And
Yeah.
Doug wanted to, I'm sorry, Tom?
Yeah, I was also gonna join in and mention that we're gonna post this slide presentation as a PDF file on guitarbuilding.org. And so we'll have a link up on guitarbuilding.org, and we'll include that in one of our emails to all the participants.
Great, thank you, Tom. Doug wanted just to remind everyone to, we highly encourage you to bring a camera. The one that's attached to your cell phone is just fine. But this is a really neat process, and there's no better way to document the progress from start to finish of your guitar than cameras, and I use them all the time, and there are certain pictures that I refer back to when I build. So definitely remember to bring a camera. Paul, one of our participants in Laramie, asked earlier about, we keep mentioning selling the guitars, and who do we sell them to? And that's a fantastic question. That's one of the things that we will talk about more at our workshops. But sometimes we sell the guitars to the students. I believe Mike has kind of a show and tell art auction at the end of the semester where he sells some of the guitars at that to fund, continually fund his guitar program. You can sell it to community members, parents, administrators, however you would like it, but the NSF really encourages us to have a sustainable program. And so Doug has done that a lot of different ways in his classroom, by selling guitars, by selling extra stuff, by manufacturing parts for Sinclair. So we want this program to be sustainable for you, and that's something we'll talk about more in our institutes. But selling the guitar is something that you will have to do, like I said, whether that's to the student that sold it, the parents, whatnot. But we do want this to be sustainable. Just as a reminder to all of you that are coming to Laramie, if you are at altitude, or if you're at sea level, keep in mind you're going to 7,220 feet, where we have only about 11 pounds per square inch of atmospheric pressure up here. So please, please, please stay hydrated and get hydrated before you come out here, and that will really help combat altitude sickness. So if any of you are worried about that, I'll be happy to talk with you. I'm originally from Ohio, so I kind of am a little bit more sensitive to that than I guess the Laramie native.
Hey, Debbie. Hey, Debbie.
Yes?
This is Mike Akins. Hey, are you going to have like a mechanical bull, or are you going to have like a corral where we can, Sean took us surfing in California. We were kind of thinking we'd be doing some kind of cowboy thing out there. You know what I mean?
Believe it or not, when I came out here 2 years ago, I asked, if there's a mechanical bull. I expected one in every watering hole, and there are none. But I did put Rocky Mountain oysters on the menu for one of the days for lunch, so a lot of people requested those, so that's covered, Mike.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. One more question, I think. Paul asked, could you send us a video? Tom, the video that we were going to show in the slide, could you talk about where that location is? Is it on guitarbuilding.org?
Yeah, the actual guitar videos are actually on YouTube. We actually have our own YouTube channel. You can Google or YouTube search STEM Guitar, all one word, and all of our YouTube channel videos will show up for you. There's quite an extensive number of YouTube videos. We keep adding new videos to our collection to help cover all the different areas and processes that you're going to go through. We realize that you're not going to be able to memorize everything in a week. The whole idea is to give you the tools available that you can go back and review, look like a rock star in front of your class as you're going through this particular process, and provide that level of support that you need. I wanted to make sure that I thank everybody for joining us We're coming up on the end of our webinar here at 30 minutes after the hour. On Friday afternoon, taking an hour and a half out of your day, I know our team really appreciates the amount of commitment that you're bringing forward to joining us on this journey in STEM guitar. Any other final questions?
I see Jeremiah Johnson's gravesite is somewhere in the area, according to Bill. I'm kind of liking that.
But in the area in Wyoming usually means a 4 to 6 hour drive. Nearby.
All right.
Hey,
Well,
Tom,
thank
it's Mike. Your presenters are getting a little flaky here late on Friday. Maybe we ought to officially close.
Good idea.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you in either June or July at your respective institutes itself. And again, we'll send you a link to this recording and a link to the PDF slide presentation that goes along with this. Have a great weekend, and we'll be talking to everybody soon through email.
All right. Good on you, folks.